I don't know, it's a pile of possibilities. It's an unrealistic pile of possibilities of short books that all sound really, really good. I don't know, I guess I'm going to tell you how long every book is, just to show that they're short. There's a wasp flying around. It's making me nervous. It's making me lose my train of thought. Hi everyone, it's me, Jess, and I am testing out a new mic. I hope this mic works. I hope it's good in terms of the level of the volume, and I hope that some of the street noise that's in my street is eliminated, reduced as a result of using this mic. I talked about the idea of using a mic a couple of videos ago, and I finally gotten it all set up, and fingers crossed that it's working as it should. Technical details aside for the video, I am here to talk about some selections of short books for Shorty September. This is, I think, the third year that Shorty September is running, and this is the first year that I'm making a video of a pile of possibilities, a TBR, and some recommendations of short books. Now, I know that the hosts have created a zine and they also have some prompts, so I would really encourage you to check out the announcement videos, which I'll include in the description box below. But really, I'm here just to offer you some suggestions of short books to read in September if you're interested, and to talk about my pile of possibilities, all of the short books that I'm considering reading some of, probably not all of, in September. I think it's a great idea for a readathon. I know the hosts don't define short in any specific way. I think that the general benchmark is around 200 pages. So some of the books here I have, most of them are novellas, under 200 pages, or they're maybe 250 pages at the most. And they're books that I've read in the past couple of years that are short, that really made a big impression on me. So the first one is The Body by Stephen King. I read this not this past summer, but the summer before, and this is the movie that inspired, or this is the book that inspired the film Stand By Me, and it tells the story of the friendship between four boys coming of age into teenagehood, adulthood. I guess they're teenagers. I think they're like 13, 14, 15, and so it's set in the summer, and they're going to find the body of another kid who was murdered. The writing in this is really good. I really enjoyed it. It's not very long. I don't know if I'm going to go through and say how many pages each book is, but it's under 200 pages. And I do think that this is one of Stephen King's best. Like, I really appreciated his writing in this book. It made me very nostalgic, and it has a real summer vibe to it. So if you're looking for something that will bring you into the tail end of summer, I think this is a good pick. Another book that I read this year that I really enjoyed, well, I thought it was really interesting, was Signs Preceding the End of the World. This is the story of Makina, a young girl who is going to find out what happened to her brother. She leaves behind her home in Mexico. She crosses the border into the United States to find out what happened to her brother. And I will say that one of the things that I think is so interesting about this book is that Yuri Herrera, who, and it's translated by Lisa Dillman, who writes this teen female character, Makina, so well in this story. I was really impressed by that. It has a lot of commentary on the experience of being an immigrant and having to migrate. And yeah, I think it's a really good potential pick for Shorty September. A couple of other books, I'm so not used to this mic. A couple of other books that I just recently talked about in the Q&A because Charlie at Charlie Brooks Reads had asked me to talk about some short book recommendations in that video in the questions. So I already talked about these, but I'll go through them again. Ghost Wall by Sarah Moss. This is the story of another teenager, 17-year-old Sylvie, and she's on this camp with her dad and mom, maybe I think her brother, I can't remember, and they are putting themselves in the time of the Iron Age. with a group of scholars, and it's all led by an archaeologist. It's just really interesting commentary on all kinds of different things, and it really impressed me. It's the first time I read anything by Sarah Maas, and I'd like to read more of her work. I have a short book by her called The Fell, which is a possibility for Shorty September. Open Water by Caleb Azumah Nelson. This was in my top 10 best books from last year. I think it was a lot of people's top 10 best books from last year. It's so beautifully written. This is a great story about a couple. Both of them are artists. The woman is a dancer and the man is, I believe, a photographer. And it's just a very beautiful story about a relationship. It's written in the second person, which I thought was something that would be difficult at first, but I came to really enjoy. It gives you a different relationship to the characters. The narration being in the second person gives you kind of a more intimate relationship to the characters. So I thought it was pretty brilliant. And he also has another book out called Small World, which I have out from the library. Let me just check. Yeah, so he has another book out that I just got out of the library called Small Worlds. It's also a short-ish book, a little more than 200, about 250 pages. And I think that it follows, it's part of a trilogy. So this is something that I'm probably going to have on my TBR for September. I'm also going to recommend Mapping the Interior by Stephen Graham Jones. I did a whole reading vlog that included this book and Tin Man, which are both short books, which are both wonderful, and did it as part of the college reading vlog. This is a kind of a ghost story about a young, and a coming of age story about a young Indigenous boy who thinks that he sees his father's ghost in their home. But it's a horror story, but it also is it's a vehicle for what it's like to be Indigenous in America. Highly, highly recommend this one. I think Fight Club could be a good option. If anybody out there hasn't read Fight Club by Palahniuk, Fight Club, I think most people have heard of it because of the film, but I do think that one of the prompts is to read a book that was a film. Yeah, I think that's one of the prompts. So I think this could be a good option for that. I haven't read it in an awfully long time, but I remember it being pretty good. So, I mean, it's a possibility for me to reread it. Good option for some people. The Swimmers, which I read this year or last year, I think at the beginning of this year, by Julie Otsuka. This is a little book that explores the community swimming pool. It's quite funny in parts, and then it goes on in the later sections to talk about one of the characters who has Alzheimer's, and that part does get a little bit sad, so be forewarned. So yeah, if you haven't read The Swimmers yet, this could be great to pick up for Shorty September. It's less than 200 pages. Another great book that I read last year that's short that I really thought was very good was Assembly by Natasha Brown. This is the story of a Black British woman, and she's preparing to attend a lavish garden party. She's also dealing with a diagnosis, and she really contemplates a lot about her life and about decisions that she needs to make and how she can sort of take control of her own story. Assembly, this is, I think, a debut, and it was really, really good. It packed a punch for such a small book. I'd like to recommend some classics that are quite short. I don't have a physical copy of it with me at this moment. Passing by Nella Larson, and it is such a good book. It's so short, and again, it packs such a big punch for such a small book. It's a fascinating story about a woman who is passing as white, and her friend who is in their old community in Harlem, and the woman who's passing as white comes back and wants to participate more in that community again, and it really is about sense of belonging and place, and obviously race. Such a good book. A Room with a View, which I talked about in the Q&A. This is one of my faves. I haven't read all of E.M. Forster's book, but I really enjoyed A Room with a View. It's a really funny story about a British woman who goes to Italy with her aunt, I think, who's her kind of her guardian, and she meets a man there, and it's about what happens when they fall for each other. It's hilarious. It's a really good book. Oh, I'm going to be saying this about all my recommendations. In that same video, I talked about Of Mice and Men. I think there are a couple of John Steinbeck novellas that you could select for Shorty September. I do think Of Mice and Men is a very sort of important, special book in the way that it also handles race in such a compassionate way, really making the characters really real and honest human characters. So I think A Mice and Men is a great option. I loved Virginia Woolf's Flush. Again, I did a vlog of this when Nella was a puppy, and it's really sweet, this book. Most of it is told through the eyes of Flush the dog, and that's pretty fun as a narrative choice. Also, Thérèse Raquin, which I recommend a lot. This is such a dark book, and it's got so much going on in it. It's the story of Thérèse Raquin, who is an orphan, and it's about her life and also about her relationship to her cousin Camille, who she is kind of forced into a marriage with, this kind of sickly character Camille, and then about what happens after that because she falls in love with someone else. It's a really intense book, and it's very short, and it's really good. So I want more people to read it. If you haven't read Thérèse Raquin, you're really, really missing out. I talked about it in a little bit more detail when I reviewed it as classics, not last year, but the year before. I think Lord of the Flies would be a good selection. If you haven't read Lord of the Flies since high school, like me, a reread might be in order. I might think about rereading it. So we all know, I think, the story of Lord of the Flies, that these kids crash land on an island and they find themselves in these surroundings, these idyllic surroundings, but they end up vying for power. And it's a commentary on the structure of society, of course. I think everybody knows about Lord of the Flies, but I think that would be a good choice. This copy is less than 200 pages. Finally, for classics recommendations, I would be remiss if I didn't talk about Giovanni's Room, which I read at the beginning of this year, and it really blew my mind. James Baldwin's writing stands apart from other writers I've read. I do think that it's worth the time. It's very short, less than 200 pages, but it is a bit intense to read, and there's a lot of thinking that goes into the reading of this story about a man living in Paris and grappling with his relationship, in particular with the woman that he thinks he should marry and the man that he's in love with. So yes, Giovanni's Room would qualify. So those are the ones that I will recommend. Here is my pile of possibilities. My pile of possibilities includes some classics, some authors that I've read before, and some new to me authors. So I've already talked about Small Worlds. This is a possibility. There are 2 Annie Erneaux books that I'm considering, which I didn't get to for Women in Translation Month. I picked up A Girl Story, which was recommended to me, and then I happened to see at the library Happening. So Happening is, A Girl Story is a profound and beautiful examination of the impenetrable wall that time erects between the self we are and the selves we once were. And that sounds fascinating to me. There's a blurb from Catherine Lacey on the back, a blurb from Sheila Heti on the back, and then Happening is described in 1963. Annie Erneaux, 23 and unattached, realizes she is pregnant. So this is the one about the abortion, I think. 40 years later, she sifts through her memories and her journal entries dating from those days. So this is more autobiographical. Oh no, they're both. This is about being overpowered by someone else, and this is about abortion. I don't know which one I'll read. Maybe let me know in the comments below which one you think I should start with Annie Erneaux. Happening or A Girl Story. And I picked up in a recent book called Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This is another novella by him. I'm excited to read it. It's about a mannequin that comes to life and scares the crap out of everybody. I think that could be really fun to read. We're getting close to Halloween, so maybe I will read that. Forster by Claire Keegan, which I've actually had out from the library for quite some time now because I really want to read it. Our libraries here in Montreal have a new policy where they don't charge any late fines. I'm not sure what a good thing that is, but I haven't returned this yet. I've been hogging this book, so I'm thinking I need to get to it for Shorty September. I believe it's a story about a fostered kid, and there's a lot of people talking about how wonderful it is, so I'd like to try to read that. I picked up Maurice by E.M. Forster, so this would be another E.M. Forster for me. I guess the second E.M. Forster. I haven't read A Passage to India, and I'm trying to think what his other famous one is. It's not coming to my mind. But this book, I actually had a bit of trouble finding because I guess it's a little bit more unusual. And I think that this book is the inspiration for My Police. It says on the back, a tale of bravery and defiance. This intensely personal novel was completed in 1914, but remained unpublished until after Forster's death in 1970. A founding work of modern gay literature, it tells the story of Maurice Hall, a privileged young man who finds himself increasingly attracted to his own sex. And then he meets Clive at Cambridge, begins to have this sexual awakening. I think it'll be really, really good. Definitely want to get to it at some point. And that one is also quite short, 218 pages. A couple of other options. I think that Sandy at Miss Reads a Lot has The Wide Sargasso Sea as her book club pick. And I've been wanting to read this. This was on my list of classics that I wanted to read this year. This is the story of the woman in the attic from Jane Eyre, who is a Creole heiress, Antoinette Causeway, and it's her story. This is the story of how she ended up in the attic in Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. So yes, definitely want to read that. I've heard nothing but good things about it. For Women in Translation, I ordered Boulder by Eva Baltzazar, and I haven't gotten to it yet. I think this would be wonderful as well as an option for me. It's only around 100 pages. It's about a woman who's nicknamed Boulder, who gets a job in Reykjavik, and this couple decides to move in together. She declares that she wants to have a child now that they're settled. She's 40, and she can't let the opportunity pass her by. This is about motherhood. It's about a queer relationship, and it's about motherhood. That's really all I need to know going in. I've heard good things about it. Another book that I picked up that's quite short that might work for Shorty September is If an Egyptian Cannot Speak English by Noor Naga. This is in post-Arab Spring Cairo. Two unnamed characters meet and fall in love. So this is a love story. So that could be a possibility. Also heard good things about it. A couple more. I haven't read Pew by Catherine Lacey yet. I know a lot of people have read Pew and thought it was great. Some people didn't like it, but I think I'd be interested in reading this as well. And it's quite short, only 200 pages. It's about a strange visitor to the church who ends up with a name Pew. And I don't think that this mysterious person has any identifiable characteristics, if I'm not mistaken. The person is genderless and racially ambiguous and refuses to speak. Intriguing! I find that really intriguing. And it's so funny because I picked this up at the library like 3 or 4 times and I just never have read it. So I think it might be my time to read Pew. I ordered I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. It came very, very late. There's a whole saga around that I talk about in my book haul, my recent book haul. And I think it would be great for me to read this for Shorty September. Again, it's only 200 pages. We shall see. There's no way that I'm going to read all of these books, of course, but it would be nice to try. I also picked up America by Franz Kafka, which is fairly short, around 200 pages. That's another classic, which I'm hoping to get to, and maybe that's going to be on the list for September. So that is a pile of possibilities of short books that all sound really, really good. Who knows which ones I'm going to be able to get to. I'm in luck that it's Shorty September. It's going to be a lighter reading month for me in September because I'm back in classes. So yeah, lots of options. After watching everyone's videos, there are just so many options for Shorty September. Whatever I don't get to this year, I'll get to next year. What a great idea for a reading challenge in September. And it's perfect for this time of year because this time of year is a very busy time of year. Everyone's back in school. Everyone's back from summer holidays. Everyone's busy, 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 busy. Everyone's going to the dentist. Everyone's going to the doctor. Everyone's getting groceries at the same time, if you know what I mean. Anyhow, that's it for me for this video. I will see you all in the next one. Until then, take care. Bye for now. Yeah, this mic has a really long cord, which is kind of amazing. Gosh, I hope everything records. Okay, excuse me. So, the story of how Fifi, could you stop knocking over my tripod? My pile of possibilities includes, I always talk when I'm bending over.